Leave it to Gege Akutami to create another amazing character just to sacrifice them! What's up, guys? That guy with a... Wait! Espera! Un momento, por favor! Por favor! Pencil, in fact, I do mean to have it on me and keep it on me at all times. Now, fun fact, here we are for you to receive my thoughts on Yuka's sacrifice specifically. I was initially going to make this just a my thoughts video on Yuka as a whole, but then I sat down trying to record it, and I was like, oh, I just really want to talk about the sacrifice a whole lot. We'll give her a separate full character video eventually. I'm not even just talking about my thoughts, like an actual full elaborate character video that's more than 15 minutes. But speaking of 15 minutes, let me start this timer right now and waste no more time. Yeah! So, Yuka Okkotsu is a complicated character for a character who's existed for less than a year, but she's a character that exists in a very interesting position narratively. And that's the main way I want to tackle Yuka's sacrifice. I think the more basic level of why Yuka sacrificed herself is pretty easy to understand. You know, ultimately, as much as she cares for the Sumerians and other people and this, that, and the third, she's a human fighting for humanity, right? She's the one who was definitely based in connection very heavily. She wanted to put an end to all this conflict and stealing. She wanted to reach out and understand people. But at the end of the day, she's a human. She's a sorcerer. She has a role to play above all other things, so thusly she plays that role first and foremost, and she has the power to do so. I think that's fine. That's understandable. That's basic. That's clean level stuff. But I want to tackle what her sacrifice means from a narrative standpoint and how it fits into the overall thematics of Modulo, whatever you wish to call it. So, with that being the case, let's talk about what the Yuta... I keep saying Yuta. Yeah! That's just not my foot on the floor! But Yuka's sacrifice, at least to me narratively, is meant to represent the idea of human sacrifice being necessary for connection between people. Now, you may be wondering, excuse me, Pencil Man, I'm not sure if you ain't the sharpest spoon in no kitchen shed, but Yuka is literally going out of her way to boom Dabura by using a death-binding vow amped Mahoraga in order to slay the strongest Sumerian. What on earth are you talking about? That she's acting as the foundation of the representation of human sacrifice to foster connection between two different groups of people. And the reason I say she's still acting as that bridge, that stone to be stepped over, that thing to reach across and help people understand each other, is very specifically one thing she says. And it is in the moment that she summons Mahoraga, or technically the moment right before. She does summon Mahoraga. She plays her role. She sacrifices herself, ready to give herself up for the sake of humanity, as is her role as a sorcerer, and as she is simply as a person who cares for her people. But notably, before she goes, in fact, no, this is before she goes, she says, "I'm sorry, Dabura." She understands that there is a fundamental disagreement between the Sumerians and the humans. Very specifically, the Rumelians and the humans. She understands that, at least in terms of her current existence, a girl destined to die, slowly but surely, and ultimately leave nothing more than a fading whisper on the marks of history. Ultimately, the best she can do is act as the manifestation for the catalyst of connection. And I think the catalyst of connection actually exists in the being that she summons in Mahoraga. I previously covered how I think Mahoraga is a representation for humanity, and very specifically the endless adaptation that humanity undergoes, because as long as we survive, we will become ever greater, ever stronger, ever faster, ever more durable, until we can overcome and transcend anything. However, I want to talk about Yuka as the summoner of Mahoraga and what it means for her. Because I think ultimately each Mahoraga summon means something different narratively for each time it's summoned. It means something different for each character who summons it. From Megami to Sukuna and now to Yuka. So what does Mahoraga mean for Yuka as the bridge between humanity and the Sumerians? I think there's a couple things. Not only does Mahoraga stand in an interesting position through Yuka, you know, she is not directly fighting Dabura, humanity isn't directly fighting Dabura, humanity is sending a representative who is sending a representative of humanity to reach out to the Sumerians, to attempt essentially to understand and connect with them, except they're connecting in the one universal language that basically all living creatures share. The language of violence. That's the most core aspect where humans and every living thing can understand. And you may be like, well, if Yuka's all about the idea of connection, and very specifically if you go all the way back to chapter 7, the idea of not stealing, not taking, not doing everything in your power to simply survive, rather putting an end to such conflict and reaching understanding, why would she use combat as a means to do that, right? Ultimately, she's put herself in quite the precarious position, right? While we as readers may have hoped that a Yuji Itadori will step in, or maybe a Mahito will come in third party, something beyond Yuka's understanding, in Yuka's mind, what does she do other than sentence both herself and Dabura to death by doing this? I think ultimately what it stands for and what it represents is Yuka essentially giving humanity a chance and giving the Sumerians a chance to prove themselves to each other. Mahoraga being this conduit, this substitute for humanity in this cycle, with Yuka being the payment for Mahoraga to exist, is this idea of connection through sacrifice. And very specifically, connection through sacrifice that comes at a cost that is willing to be paid by someone who seeks to connect in the first place. Notably, if anyone else had fought Dabura, possibly even Yuji himself, it wouldn't necessarily have been a battle of someone who felt bad for Dabura, who felt bad for the Sumerians. It would have been a person desperately fighting for humanity. And yes, Yuka is doing the same thing, putting her life on the line as she literally lives the last of it, but ultimately the way Yuka's sacrifice works is she's laying everything out. She's putting her life on the line quite literally and offering Dabura, offering the Sumerians this perfect balance between curses and what the Remelians interpret as Kallions in the case of Mahoraga, and humanity. Because for all intents and purposes, Mahoraga being a Shikigami, something to cross the bridge between humanity and cursed energy in the most literal physical sense, is Yuka offering up humanity as a concept to the Sumerians and showing off what it has to offer. And at the same time, showing off to humanity what the Sumerians have to offer by giving Mahoraga up, giving herself up. Because remember, as much as this is a showcase for humanity in terms of Mahoraga's madness, especially when you go to chapter 18 and see how Boku bonkers this man Mahoraga was moving once he adapted, right? A very fantastic showing for humanity. This is still also a showing for the Sumerians. It's a showing of their humanity, their ability to go beyond, their ability to be people just as much as humans are people. Because ultimately there is a core fundamental misunderstanding and a realistically, I suppose you would call it an incongruence between humanity and Sumerians, but ultimately they can come to a point of connection, they just need to breach it. And narratively, I think that's what Yuta is acting as. How much of this is intentional on Yuka's part, I'm very 50-50 on, because once again, I'm trying to tackle this more so from a thematic angle of it and like a storytelling and narrative sense. But just based on how Yuka's been written, she's very emotionally intelligent. She definitely understands the conflicts of the Sumerians and the conflict of humanity, and very specifically goes on to note the idea of her own mortality playing into how she wishes to live her life and how she wishes to spend it. I think ultimately Yuka probably did go into this battle, if not hoping to lose, essentially, with Mahoraga's eventual perishing. I think she hoped to bridge something. Because at the end of the day, right, this duel is still a conversation. Just as all fights in good battle manga are, but it's a conversation between humanity and the Sumerians. Of course, Dabura is a unique exception of a Sumerian in many different ways, and obviously he does not directly connect to the Remelians. This was even pointed out by Osuki, another Remelian being like, Dabura, you'll never be one of us, you'll never understand us. But, in the same way, humanity never fully understood Mahoraga, and the only one who did understood Mahoraga for a very limited period of time and used it in a very specific way, and even still didn't fully understand it considering he lost it. So Mahoraga, something separate but inherently tied to humanity, is fighting in the stead of Yuka, a human. Just as Dabura, something that's fundamentally different yet intrinsically tied to the Remelians and obviously Sumerian, is fighting for the Sumerians. They are acting as these two pieces of conversation that are showing each other off, essentially. I'm not sure who is watching this battle in terms of the other Samurians or the rest of humanity, but just considering the gargantuan scale of everything going down within this battle, entirely ignoring Tsurugi versus Maru, mind you, I think both sides are beginning to understand each other. And ultimately, I think the revelations in chapter 18 on Dabura's end only feed further into the idea that Yuka's sacrifice is meant to build this bridge, build this point of connection. Because it's this idea of Dabura realizing his own humanity and his need to fight for it, that he can truly accept this battle as what it is, at a face value. And he couldn't have done that unless who did something? Unless who sacrificed her life? Unless who acted as the bridge for that point where his humanity could have been dug up from the depths in the first place? It was Yuka. Yuka's sacrifice is acting as the bridge. She's laying the foundation for that connection. It is in a much more literal and a much more visceral way than I think she was ever expecting to. I'm pretty sure she and Maru and even Tsurugi after a point, even Cross as well, were all hoping for just a more tangible and slow but certain maybe cohabitation and intermingling between humanity and the Samurians, but it's clear by the nature of human nature that one fears what they do not understand, and one is hard to change from their set ways, in both cases. So the only way these two sides could communicate is if they did have a battle like this. A battle that was connected to yet transcended both humanity and the Samurians. So, if Yuka did not agree to this, if it was anything but Mahoraga, a creature that represents humanity yet is separated from it, then I don't think this would hit as hard. Say they did find Yuji. Say Yuji did get the entire scenario and was like, well, guess I'll do it, and he came to find Dabura. Well, there definitely could be an interesting thematic angle there. I don't think it would hit as hard because if Yuji just wins, there was no sacrifice on humanity's part. There was no longing or building of connection through two separate conduits that are intertied. Even with Yuji being that interesting balance point between curses and humanity, I think he's a little bit too far detached. Meanwhile, Mahoraga is just 1 degree of separation, and Yuka's life being the cause for Mahoraga is more than enough for both sides to begin to understand each other in the one language that is universal. The language of violence, the language of sacrifice, the language of loss. So ultimately, I like Yuka's sacrifice and how it's being used narratively and how it acts as the foundation for the connection between humanity and the Samurians. Obviously, there is a whole other battle going on right now that acts in that same stead. It is Maru versus Tsurugi and how that also will build the connections in terms of humanity and Samurians. But on a grander scale, I think Yuka laying the foundation on the broader idea. Meanwhile, Maru and Tsurugi's battle is a lot more personal and intertied despite its grander scheme. I think it works really, really well, and I think no other character but Yuka could have done it, since she was the one who expressed giving up anything and everything anyway in order to make sure that she could reach a point that all people could be happy, no matter what happened in that moment. So, with that being the case, you may be wondering, okay, Pencil Man, you've been doing a whole lot of glazing for this sacrifice and how it's being used narratively. How do you feel about it? Like I said, okay, I like it. I see the narrative value behind it. I appreciate and respect it. I see the wrist to whipping on KK's end. I just don't like that it's another character that he makes. It was so fantastic. It could have worked on their own, being used as a conduit or a sacrifice for something greater, something beyond themselves, even if they're directly tied into it. This screams the Megami situation all over again, where Megami himself is already on the pathway to be a really interesting and fantastic character on his own by the time of the Culling games, but we get to the end of it, and boom, he's sacrificed just so Sukuna can have a body. And don't get me wrong, I love the Sukuna and Yuji dynamic, and I don't think the end of JJK could have worked without Sukuna taking over Megami's body. You needed to do that, or else you would have to fundamentally restructure the end of JJK, and I do like the writing that came out of the end of JJK. But it's the same way I feel about that, where I feel here. Was it for the greater good in both the literal sense of the in-narrative and the meta-narrative? Absolutely. There's no other way unless you did reintroduce Yuji as the vessel for humanity that this really could have worked. And Yuka is the perfect character of all the characters, the major characters at least established, to do this. So it's fine. It works. It's okay. But gosh darn it, man. Gosh darn it. And the thing is, though, I don't... It's one of those things where I wish it was something else because I really like the character, but even as I've sat and thought on it for a while, I'm not sure, because with the current foundation of how the narrative is set, I'm not sure how I would swap and move characters around to get the same thematic and narrative points across without, like, breaking something or leaving a character not in something. You could just say Yuka's sick, or like heavily sick and can't move, just like Cross is currently in with his physical state. I don't think that hits as much. I just don't think it hits as much. I feel like having Yuka actively be involved, even if she's literally not actively involved, is a better way to utilize her narratively, and you get to have the big bad battle, which speaks thematically, and the smaller battle that speaks thematically. Like, you do get the best of both worlds. I just really like Yuka, and I wish she wasn't in this point, but she can still be saved. Like I mentioned before, as long as someone else third parties Mahoraga, Yuka can still hypothetically survive. They just need some high-level RCT, though. But overall, with that being the case, I am now out of time. So those were my thoughts on how Yuka's sacrifice works narratively, how I feel about it. But what do you guys think? Please let me know in the comment section down below. I want to thank you so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure you hit that little notification bell so you not miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, please do me a favor and leave... Stroking the beard. Let me think. Lost to be found. There you go. That sounds real. That sounds real intelligent, even though I don't think that works in this context. Leave lost to be found in the comment section down below. Once again, I want to thank you so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure that little notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also do have a link to my... Wait, see, I jacked up the outro. But I want to thank you so much for watching. Like, share, comment, subscribe. You can become a patron for as low as $1 a month. You can be a member for as low as $3 a month. That'll be linked down below, or you can just join on the channel. Man, see, this is what happens when I try to do the outro in a different way, because I forget to do the password almost. Thank you so much for watching. Patreon down below, $1 a month. Or you can remember, $3 a month. You get access to all the live reactions. You get your name at the end of every single video. You get early access to videos for the second channel. You get all that. You get your name. And if you're a $3 member or higher, $3 patron or higher, you get your name listed and read aloud at the end of every single video. Ko-Fi down below. 5 minutes for a short video. 20 minutes for a long video. There's that. Brain. And I have my Twitch link down below as well. Sorry. Whew, I don't know what it is. Whenever I jack up the outro, my brain absolutely shuts down. But now, I want to thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with a Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our sketch tier members: Eternal Flame, Red Wolf 4765, Astro, Glacier XZ, Zera, J2MA, Guillaume, Pura Ura, Enzo, Yuki Ally, Grim, Ollie, The Boy, Corey Watson, Damon Brown, Magic, CCC, Romano Furen, Dino, Hector Gonzalez, Tim Thomas, Kaving, Julian Perez, RXN, Nevis97, Logan Guzman, Dead Meme, Koru Deer, Christian Carter, Keon Stewart, Donovan McIntosh, Sino King, Hamza Idrisi, BNA DNA, Edwin Igbinoba, Straw, Athenzi Shear, Antavius Mitchell, Azo2404, Superflame Zero, Weary Exile, Window Life, Alex Kenny, Victor Jacobs, Todd, Dre, Axis XC, The Practical One, Aswin Hedi Presetia, JMD KD, Devi Pesiet, Landon Clapwick, Heath Nelson, CAET, Funny Dude, Jagoda, Plant Crone, Striker Man, Brandon Payne, Black Sage, and Multi-Batman Superman. Then I leave a thank you to Artline Art Tier patrons: A+A, Kevin Encarnacion, Sean, Dread Zoen, Midnight Lord 21, CJ, and Karina Hernandez. Then I leave a thank you to our Ink Tier members: King RTX, Shrimpo the 4th Shrimp 06, and Zom. Then I give a thank you to our digital art tier members: J Warrior and AZ Void. And I'd like to give a final thank you to our colored art tier patrons: Walking Munoz and Walkie Munoz.